My former best friend Rachel is the worst human being alive. I hope she dies a slow and painful death. Because I had a huge crush on my neighbor Scotty, and I was too shy to approach him. So I asked my friend Rachel, "Can you find out if he likes me?" "Sure, anything for a friend." She walked over to Scotty and talked to him for 20 minutes. Why did it take so long? "Oh my God, you are finally back!" "Sorry, sweetie, you aren't his type. He said all white girls are stuck up and boring. That's why he only dates Latinas." I was devastated. I knew Scotty and I were meant for each other. So the next week I told Rachel to ask him again, but this time I had spy gear to listen in on them. "Hey Scotty, did you enjoy last night?"
"Oh, you bet. I didn't know you were such a naughty girl."
"Well, I enjoyed it too. Any plans for this weekend?" Wow, I couldn't believe it. And when Rachel came back, she lied right to my face. "He said he doesn't want to offend you, but you are just not his type. To be honest, I suspect he might be more into boys." My ears were burning with rage, but I didn't call her out on her BS. Instead, I tried a different strategy and approached Scotty myself. I said, "My life is so unfair. I told my friend I have a crush on you, but then she stole you away from me."
"You mean Rachel?"
"Yes, she said you think I'm ugly."
"What? Actually, I've had a crush on you for years."
Oh my God! Scotty liked me, and then he even asked me out on a date. I immediately went to Rachel to rub it in her face. "I know you hit on Scotty, you piece of trash." "Oh, honey, he's out of your league. Get over it." "Oh yeah? Then why did he ask me out on a romantic dinner?" I made sure I looked as hot as I could for our date. I wanted to make Scotty my boyfriend. But then I asked him, "Are you still seeing Rachel?"
"Yes, I do. She invites herself over to my house most days."
I realized I had to act quick. So I told him, "I'm tired. Can we go watch a movie in your bed?"
"Sure."
But then I met his mother. "Who are you?" "Oh, just a friend of your son." "What? Scotty, what happened to that beautiful Jewish girl, Rachel?"
I liked her more.
"Mom, just stay out of my dating life." But shortly after, Rachel arrived. "Hey, Scotty, I've missed you so much. Come give me a hug." "Back off, Rachel. Just because his mom likes you doesn't mean he does." "Stop crying. And Scotty, did you know she got an STD by a drunk guy at a party?" "Stop spreading lies, you dirty piece of trash." We were in a full catfight when I pushed Rachel into the TV and it crashed to the floor. Mrs. Scott saw everything and screamed at me, "Get out! My son deserves better than you!" I was devastated but didn't give up. I took my spy gear, pointed it at Scotty's air conditioner, and through it I could hear everything. Rachel said, "She's not your girlfriend. You are free to do whatever you want."
"I know, but I think I love her."
"Oh, forget about her. I'm hotter anyway, and tonight I want to spoil you." Then I heard kissing sounds and it broke my heart. The next day I asked Scotty if he wanted to become my boyfriend. He responded,
"Yes, of course. But my mom will keep inviting Rachel to my house and I can't resist her. She's too hot."
So I became his official girlfriend while he kept Rachel as his side chick. I didn't really mind it, but then Scotty went to college and told me that he and Rachel had classes together. Apparently, she was getting an engineering degree just like him, but I knew it wasn't a coincidence. She was still trying to steal him away from me. I got so jealous that I enrolled in the same college, even though now I had to study engineering too. It was so complicated that my classmate Valentine had to help me out. "Thanks, Valentine. I don't know what I'd do without you."
"It's my pleasure."
"Oh, okay." It was easy to justify messing around with Valentine because Scotty had done the same with Rachel. But 1 week later, Scotty said,
"Today is our 3rd anniversary, and I love you so much. Let's move in together."
But it was too late. I responded, "I'm sorry. I like you, but I'm in love with another guy."
"What? You've been seeing someone else?"
"Oh, you're the one to talk. Rachel has been your side chick all along."
"That's not true. I haven't touched her in 2 years."
"Well, now you are single, so nothing's stopping you." I headed directly to Valentine and asked, "Do you want to be my boyfriend?"
Wow, you are very straightforward, but sure, why not?
We were the perfect couple. But my ex Scotty was still mad at me, so to get revenge, he told Valentine that I had cheated on him. It was brutal. Valentine confronted me the same day and said, "So you were in a relationship with this guy Scotty and dating me on the side? You betrayed him with me?" "Oh gosh, it was nothing serious between me and Scotty."
"Are you sure? He showed me some of your text messages. They go 3 years back, and 2 months ago you wrote him, "Let's get married once we have jobs, and let's wait to have kids until we're 30. He had caught me off guard, and I knew I'd messed up.
I could hear my boyfriend Paul laughing through the door. Did he have a visitor? I hoped it wasn't a girl. I rang the doorbell, but when he saw me, his face went blank. He said, hey, I didn't expect you here. Did I disturb you? Oh, no. I'm just hanging out with my cousin. Oh, cool. What are you guys up to? We wanted to go camping for a night. If you want, you can join us. Sure, sounds like a great idea. Well, hiking through the forest was a lot of fun, but after we had set up camp, Paul and his cousin went to gather firewood. After an hour, they still weren't back, so I grew worried that they had gotten lost or been attacked by a bear. It was already dark, and I became so afraid that I started crying. When they finally got back, Paul took me into his arms to calm me down. I was glad to have such a caring boyfriend. But when I woke up the next morning, I saw a hickey on Paul's neck. Had I kissed him last night? I was sure I didn't. So I woke him up and asked, "Why is there a hickey on your neck?" He responded, "Oh, you forgot? You couldn't fall asleep and kept kissing me." I don't remember any of that. I don't believe you, not one word. Well, that's your problem. He went back to sleep, while I kept wondering about it for hours until it finally hit me. I went to his cousin and asked, "Do you have Facebook so I can befriend you?" He got weirdly nervous and said, "No, I don't use social media." Really? What's your last name, by the way? He responded, "Are you a detective now?" It was so suspicious. Why was he refusing to answer my questions? Well, I thought I knew why. So I secretly took a photo of him and showed it to Paul's dad the following day. I asked, "Do you know this guy?" "Nope, I've never seen him." So he's not your nephew. Huh, are you kidding me? I don't have any nephews. When I confronted Paul about it, he finally said, "Okay, you got me. For the last few months, I've been a little confused. Of course I feel attracted to you, but I wasn't sure if I also like boys." That's not an excuse. You betrayed me and you don't even feel guilty about it. How can I ever trust you again? You don't get it. I had to experiment to find out what I like. So, what's your conclusion? Do you like boys more than girls? Not at all. I felt nothing when I kissed him. It was weird. Even though Paul had betrayed me, I couldn't be mad because he had done it with a boy. So we kept dating. However, Paul was part of the drama club at our school. He was constantly surrounded by other guys, and I couldn't help but get jealous seeing them joke with each other. I grew so paranoid that I ended up following him wherever he went, until I finally caught him getting touchy-feely with another boy inside the school library. I walked up to him and said, "Gotcha! Why didn't you tell me that you prefer guys over girls? It's okay if you don't want me. Stop making a big deal out of it. You don't get it. Now you've broken my heart twice. Gosh, you're such a drama queen." Oh, really? Maybe you should be more careful about hurting others. You think I can't hurt you back? Do whatever you want. Okay, I'm gonna tell your parents. You won't. Why not? Because you don't know how hard I have it. Oh, it's always about you and your problems. You never consider how you make me feel. I walked away without actually wanting to tell his parents. But then Paul tapped on my shoulder and threatened me, saying, "Tell my parents and you'll regret it badly." Wow, he was such a fool. No one threatens me. So I went straight to his parents' house. His mom opened the door and I talked to her, saying, "Your son has broken my heart. He has betrayed me with another boy." Her reaction surprised me. She said, "Yeah, I already had a suspicion, but please do me a favor and don't tell his dad." Of course I will. No, please don't. I'm not sure how he would take it. I hope he will take it badly. His mom looked confused. She didn't understand how much I hated her son. In the end, she offered me money to not tell anyone, but I refused, saying, "It's not enough." I left and went home. Maybe I had gone too far, so I just let it go. However, 1 year later, I saw Paul dating a new girl. I wondered if she knew he preferred guys over girls, so I invited her to a cafe after school. I said, "I'm your boyfriend's ex." "Oh no, I guess you want to warn me to not date him?" "How do you know?" "It's the oldest trick in the box. You still love him and can't handle seeing him date a new girl." "What? Are you insane? He's a cheater and I want to warn you so you don't get hurt." Nice try. I know my boyfriend and he's one of the nicest guys ever. So you think you know him? Sure. Well, did you know that he prefers guys over girls? You're crazy. Whatever. I tried to rescue you, but some girls have to learn it the hard way. I didn't hear back from her until 2 months later, when she approached me saying, "You are right. My boyfriend is constantly hanging out with his cousin, and it almost seems like they love each other." I bursted out laughing and said, "Paul told you that it's his cousin?" He told me the same lie, but it's actually his lover, and whenever you aren't around, they have a lot of fun together, if you know what I mean. To my surprise, she started to cry, saying, "He told me we should move together because he wanted a serious relationship. Why would he say that if he's betraying me?" Well, I think he can't admit to himself that he prefers boys. Well, in the end, we decided to take photos of him kissing his cousin. It wasn't too hard. They met up every day after school to disappear into the forest. Once we had the photos, we sent them inside an envelope to his dad. To be honest, I don't know exactly what happened next, but Paul sent me several messages saying, "I know you did this, you monster. You've destroyed my life. I hope you burn in hell."
Imagine you were 18, good-looking, and in desperate need for money. To save your family from homelessness, what would you be willing to do? Well, 2 years ago, my mom got very sick and couldn't leave her bed anymore. That's why she lost her job, and we couldn't afford rent anymore. I knew I had 1 week left to make some money, or all 3 of us, including my 4-year-old sister, would be kicked out of the house and would have to beg on the streets. And that's super dangerous here in El Salvador, because there are tons of gangs roaming in the streets. They can't wait to find helpless families like ours to exploit them in all kinds of cruel ways. But finding a job that paid enough for rent and mom's medical bills wasn't going to happen here in this third world country I'm living in. I was desperate and willing to do anything, maybe even, you know what. But then I had a better idea. I sent a friend request on Facebook to a guy called Alberto. Everyone in school knew him because his rich dad was both a successful businessman and an influential politician. We started chatting and I asked him out on a date. Of course, he agreed. I mean, he was only 15 and I was 18. It was so awkward meeting him because I was much taller than him. But I knew what I had to do, so I acted like I had a huge crush on him, and he seemed to enjoy it a lot. I said, "Any plans for tonight?" "Not yet, but you can come by my home tonight and watch a movie with me." Well, that's what we did. And while we were sitting on a couch, I went close to him, gave him a kiss, and said, "If you want to date me, I expect you to treat me well. I want a guy that spends his money on me, because I'm a high-maintenance girl." Alberto responded, "Sure, no problem." And that's how our relationship started. However, he could only give me $1,000 a month. It wasn't even enough for my mom's medication. So at night, while Alberto was asleep, I would search his house for valuables that I could sell. I normally stole stuff from his dad's room. I figured no one would notice. But even though I was making enough money now to take care of my family, my life at school became hell. Dating a guy 3 years younger than me was extremely embarrassing. He always held my hand publicly and made me make out with him in front of others. Everyone called me a gold digger, and I guess they were right. But no one knew that I was doing it for my family. Even my former best friends turned their backs on me. Meanwhile, Alberto was a huge jerk. He had that rich kid arrogance, and to him I was nothing but a toy. On weekends, he often took me shopping to buy me the dresses he liked. Then I had to wear them to school so he could show me off to his friends. He also asked me things like, "Why are you so attracted to me?" And I would answer, "Because you are so handsome, strong, and attractive." Meanwhile, all his 15-year-old friends were listening and giggling. Well, if things couldn't get worse, Alberto's dad wanted to talk to me. He brought me into his room and said, "I know you've been stealing from me." Then he went to the door and locked it. Now I couldn't escape. I was petrified and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do it, but I needed the money for my mom's medication." "I don't care about your mother. You're gonna pay me back." "But how?" "You better find a way, my sweetheart." There was this awkward silence, and the way he looked at me made me feel uncomfortable. He said, "You are an adult, so you can get a job to pay off your debt. But there's another way. You see, my wife and I have been arguing a lot recently, so I'm gonna make you an offer. If you become my second girlfriend, I'm gonna take care of you and your financial worries." Eduardo was quite good looking, so I didn't think twice and said, "Fine! How are we gonna do it?" I thought that this was the solution to all my problems. I broke up with Alberto the same day and started meeting his dad, Eduardo, a few times per week. He normally pretended to go on business trips so his wife wouldn't get suspicious. Of course, I felt bad for his wife. Sometimes she called Eduardo while he laid next to me in bed, and he would tell her how exhausting his work was, even though he was actually cheating on her. But I guess she didn't believe him, because one day, his wife knocked on our hotel door. I had no clue and opened it. When she saw me, she started crying and screaming. She ran towards Eduardo and started punching him. He said, "It's no big deal, I don't love her. She's only a mistress."
But she was dating our son, and now you are dating her? You disgusting pig! How can you do this to me?
You probably think that he stopped seeing me after his wife found out about us, but he didn't. We kept seeing each other just as before. He didn't seem to care how much he was hurting his wife. She even sent me letters each week, begging me to stop seeing her husband. I felt incredibly guilty, but I didn't have much of a choice. And after a few months of dating, Eduardo told me he was willing to divorce his wife if I wanted to take her place. I gotta be honest, I was disgusted by him. How could someone betray his wife of 20 years so badly? I declined the offer. In fact, I wanted to run away from him as far as I could, but I needed his financial support. Well, at least until my mom died. Suddenly there were no more medical bills, and it was such a relief. I left Eduardo and took a job as a cashier to take care of my little sister. But it wasn't the life I had dreamed of. Working 10 hours a day and only making $300 per month while having to take care of a little kid on the side was too much for me to handle. So I went back to Eduardo and started dating him again. This time it was more serious though. He rented me and my sister a nice apartment to live in and started spending half of his time with us. We even talked about me getting pregnant. At first I was hesitant, but he promised to spend half of his money on our second family if I should carry his baby. He also said his son Alberto didn't have the intelligence to manage his family's money once he was gone, so he was still looking for another son. To be honest, it all sounded too good to be true. He was probably smearing honey around my mouth, but what other choice did I have? None, so I finally agreed. I know what most of you are thinking of me. I'm a terrible person for destroying another family, but most of you have never lived in absolute poverty while having to take care of a small kid, so please don't judge me too hard. In the end, I never wanted this life. I wish I could meet my dream guy like those girls in Disney movies, but this is real life, not a fairy tale. By the way, I recently gave birth to our baby. It's a boy, and Eduardo seems to love him a lot. He spends 5 days of the week with us, which means he had almost completely given up on his old family. So, maybe understandably, his wife wasn't happy about it. She sent some crook to my apartment to assassinate me. Luckily, the guy struggled to get through the door and I used my chance to jump to the neighboring balcony to escape. It was so scary though, and when I told Eduardo about what happened, he flew into a rage. And the same night he visited his old family and handled things his way. I don't really want to talk about it, because if he is willing to hurt them, he is willing to hurt us too. But at least I have Eduardo all for myself now. I mean, he can be a huge jerk and constantly threatens to leave me if I don't do exactly what he likes. He, for example, asks me to massage him all the time like I'm his maid. And then out of nowhere, he gets annoyed at me and calls me an uneducated bimbo. He says he's more attracted to independent women who have their own career and don't need his money. But at the same time, he doesn't want me to go to college or get a job. I'm sure he'll leave me for a younger girl someday, but until then, I think it's worth it. Maybe life is just complicated and messy like that.
Hey, I'm from Mexico, and my family is kind of wealthy. That's why we have a maid living with us who does the housework.
She also has a daughter called Maria, who's 1 year older than me.
We never talked much because Maria wasn't allowed to leave her small chamber unless she helped with the housework or had to go to school. I know we didn't treat her well, but a few months ago, she started giving me eye contact, and I always smiled back at her. I mean, she was quite beautiful. I even tried talking to her, but she was too shy and couldn't bring out a single word. But one Saturday morning, she came into my room to bring me breakfast. I told her, "Oh wow, that looks awesome. Thank you so much." That's when I noticed that she was wearing a rather revealing outfit. She put the breakfast on my bed, bowed down, and said, "Sir, can I do you any other favor?" Wow, I could see her bra, and it was so arousing. I offered her to sit down on my bed and eat the breakfast with me together. It was the first time we had a real conversation, and after a few minutes, she said, "It's very cold in here." I responded, I'm sorry, the air conditioning is too strong, but you can come under my blanket. Suddenly, we were laying right next to each other, with my legs touching hers. I even put my hand on her thighs. Things were great until my mom came into the room. She saw us and said, "Oh my God, what are you doing? How can you sleep with a girl like her?" Maria was so embarrassed. She ran outside. Meanwhile, I tried to explain to my mom that we hadn't slept with each other. But my mom responded, "She only wants to get pregnant by you, so she gets our money." Wow, my mom always saw the worst in other people. No wonder she was a terrible person herself. I mean, our maid was living with us for 5 years, and we still treated her like a worthless servant. My family didn't even pay for Maria's school fees. But I liked her a lot, and we started seeing each other in secret. I still remember the first time she came into my room at night. She was still shy and only said, "Hey." I stood up and said, "Wow, you look beautiful." But she was so nervous, she couldn't even look me in the eyes. I had never felt more aroused. She was wearing a short black dress, and I couldn't help myself. I put my hand on her wrist and pulled her towards me. Then I grabbed her hair, pulled it back, and kissed her. This was the first of many nights we spent together. But then it happened. She told me she was pregnant. I was confused and said, "But we always use protection. How could this happen?" She said she didn't know either. But I had a suspicion. Maybe after we slept with each other, she had searched the trash and pulled out my protection. But of course, that's just a suspicion. Anyway, it was hard to tell my parents about the baby. Both of them freaked out, and my dad even wanted to throw Maria out on the streets. I was shocked and said, "No, I love her, and I want to be her boyfriend. She isn't as bad of a girl as you think." I guess my parents were disappointed I wouldn't marry a girl from a good family. But I really didn't care. Maria was a lovely girl, and she was carrying my baby. However, in the first few months of our relationship, I learned that we were quite different. I don't want to sound arrogant, but Maria was less educated than me, and I didn't enjoy talking to her much. I still tried to be a responsible dad, but when I turned 18, I went to my first party. It was so crazy with all those beautiful girls. I stayed faithful that night and didn't kiss or sleep with another girl, but afterward, I started having doubts about my relationship with Maria. Maybe I wasn't ready for a family. And things got worse when I went to university. There were so many pretty girls, and many of them were flirting with me. I just couldn't take it anymore, so I went to Maria and said, "I know you'll be angry, but I want an open relationship." She started crying and said, "No, that's not fair." But I responded, "I'm just too young for a serious relationship. I'm sorry." I knew I was a douche because Maria had no choice. She couldn't leave me because she had no money. She was dependent on me. And as horrible as it sounds, I kind of like that because it made me feel powerful. Well, after Maria had given birth, my parents rented us a small apartment next to my university where we moved in. But I partied often and even brought girls home. And yes, I took them into the same bed my girlfriend was lying in. She would act as if she was asleep most of the time. But one night, I was drunk, woke her up, and asked if she wanted to join us. But she just started crying and ran outside. That ruined my mood, and I apologized to her afterward. Gosh, I knew I was such a jerk, but I still continued. One of my favorite girls I was dating was Mathilde. She was well educated and funny. I told her I had an open relationship with my girlfriend, and then I asked her if she wanted to move in with us. She was reluctant at first, but finally agreed. It was so awkward when I introduced her to Maria. I said, "Maria, this is Mathilde. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks now, and I want her to become part of our relationship." I could tell Maria was angry. Of course, she wanted me all for herself. But that wouldn't happen, and a three-way relationship was still better than me breaking up with Maria. Then I pulled both of them close to me, and we all kissed each other. Gosh, it was one of the most exciting moments of my life. But it got even better afterwards. We also all slept in the same bed, which I loved, but they didn't get along so well and often insulted each other. Their conflict escalated when Mathilde accidentally used Maria's towel. Maria freaked out and they ended up physically fighting each other wearing short pants on my bed. It sounds terrible, but it aroused me to see them fight over me. However, I still broke up the fight to make sure no one got hurt. In the end, Maria and I decided it couldn't continue like that. And now my parents are paying her $1,000 each month to rent her own apartment where she raises my daughter. I take care of my daughter on the weekends, and I really enjoy being a dad. But university is more important right now, so I can find a good job one day and provide well for both my daughter and Maria. A long time ago, I found a little baby monkey on the side of the street. His mother was nowhere around, so I decided to take him home with me. We were really poor, so to feed him, I had to starve myself. But he kept growing bigger and bigger, which meant he needed more and more food. I was getting so thin, I was close to death, and my mom forced me to let him go. I was crying as I opened the door, and he ran outside. I felt like I had lost a good friend. But after a few hours, I heard a knock at the door. So I opened it up, and there was my monkey friend again. He was holding 4 bananas and gave one to me, one to my sister, and one to my mom. Of course, we thanked the monkey and told him to go get more bananas. But this time he came back with 1 papaya and 1 mango. We figured he must have stolen them from the market. Well, this went on for several weeks. But one day he came back with a little gold necklace. It was beautiful, so the next day I gave it to a girl in my class named Ananya. She was even poorer than we were. Her mother had died, so she had to work as a maid for my evil classmate Champak after going to school all day. Champak treated her like a servant. He made her carry his books everywhere. And he loved barking orders at her in front of the whole class. I put the necklace around her neck, and she looked so beautiful. She gave me a kiss on my cheek and said, "Thank you." But the next day, she came back crying. She said Champak took the necklace from her and accused her of stealing it. He was really mean to her about it and punished her by making her scrub his room with a toothbrush. I wanted to fight Champak. I wanted to end him. But he was as strong as a grown man. Besides that, his father was powerful and could easily take revenge on my mom and sister. He could have done terrible things to them. I was devastated and went home feeling helpless. But then I saw my monkey bring us more bananas, and that gave me an idea. I'd train him to steal from Champak's home. Maybe he'd even find some valuable stuff to bring me. To train him, I hid a fake golden wristband around our house. Anytime he found it, I rewarded him with a little bit of chocolate. Once the monkey was well trained, I took him to Champak's place. There was a huge wall around it, but that was no problem because my monkey friend could climb it easily. He jumped from the wall onto the house and went in through a window. I didn't see the monkey for several minutes, and then I heard a scream coming from inside the house. I was getting nervous, but then my monkey came back climbing down the wall, and he was carrying a gold necklace with a beautiful stone. He gave it to me, and I stashed it in my pocket. I started running toward home, but my stupid monkey went back inside Champak's house. While I got home safely, my monkey didn't make it. The next day, I went back to Champak's house to look for my friend. There, I saw a poster. It said, "If you want this monkey, give us back our jewelry." That monkey had been my friend. I loved him very much, and I hated to lose him. But the jewelry he'd given me was worth enough to get Ananya away from Champak's family. So, my mom and I went to another city to sell the necklace safely. We took the best offer and came home with $60,000. That's a huge amount of money in my country. It was enough that my mom and I could buy a small house. We invited Ananya to live with us for free, and she seems a lot happier since she became a part of our family. At last, I want to thank my monkey friend. Thanks to him, we can live a comfortable life.
My name is Sissy, and I grew up under terrible conditions because my mom was mentally ill. She often made me steal stuff from shops because no one suspected a little girl like me to be a thief. Of course, I was scared of being caught, but my mom gave me no choice. However, one night she drank too much and fell down the stairs. Suddenly, she couldn't walk anymore, and I had to take care of her even though I was only 11. We quickly ran out of food, and I said, "Mommy, the fridge is empty and I'm hungry." She responded, "Stop complaining. Instead, go catch some cockroaches so we can eat them." Was she serious? I was petrified of those disgusting little insects, but I still trapped one of them and showed it to my mom. She told me to cook it, but we only had a toaster, so I killed it and put it in there. After I'd given it to my mom to eat, I caught many more roaches and even ate my very first small baby cockroach. It tasted okay, so I started to catch hundreds of them and became the provider of my family. But then the toaster broke and we had to eat them raw. Of course, they were extremely dirty, so we often got sick, but at least we had a full stomach. I continued living like this for weeks until people from the government came into our apartment and took me away from my mom, even though I screamed and wanted to stay with her. I was brought into a children's home where people explained to me that my mom was mentally ill, but no one wanted to tell me where she was or who was taking care of her. I felt abandoned and scared, but there was one thing that made me feel safe, and that was eating roaches. So whenever I saw one, I picked it up and put it into a toaster and ate it. The taste gave me a feeling of comfort because it reminded me of my mom. I started eating so many of them that I got salmonella infection and had to go to the hospital. When I told the doctor that I was addicted to eating cockroaches, he brought me to a psychologist who told me that there was nothing wrong about eating roaches as long as they were clean. He convinced me to start farming roaches, and that turned out to be much easier than I had thought. All I needed was a box of roaches and some fruits to feed them. After a few months, I had more than 1,000 of them. But I made a big mistake and let them roam around my room freely, because one baby roach crawled through my nose and into my brain while I was asleep. I didn't know what was going on, only that my nose hurt. I kept it untreated for several days until I visited a doctor who saw something moving way up my nose. It took several hours to pull the cockroach out, but from then, I always kept them locked in my box. But I had bigger problems. I had no friends or family, and I was feeling extremely lonely. That's why I started binge eating cockroaches. I probably gained 10 kilograms in 3 months, and I knew I had to change my life or my roach addiction would kill me. I still remember my last roach. It was a small baby one, maybe 1 centimeter big. I ate it raw and alive. Then I brushed my teeth and said, never again. Afterward, I thought I needed an education to get ahead in life, so I taught myself writing and reading by spending most of my days at the library. 6 months later, I enrolled myself in university. There I moved into a dorm, but the other girls didn't like me. They said I smelled bad and lived like a pig. I guess they were right. My mother had never taught me to clean up anything, and now I had to learn to shower daily and wash my hands when I got home. But because no one liked me, I had lots of time to study, and it reflected through my grades. One rainy afternoon while at the library, I bumped into a guy. He was dressed in all black and apologized. I could tell he was different, just like me. I asked, "What are you studying here?" And he responded, "I'm studying philosophy." We sat down at a cafe and talked for hours. He was just like me. He said his family had raised him on a farm but mostly neglected him. He said they didn't speak a single word with him from age 11 to 16. His only friends were books until he ran away and found a job as a construction worker. But his love for reading brought him to a university, just like it did for me. I had a weird feeling when I looked at him. I can't describe it, but it felt good. And 1 week later, we had our first date. We were lying next to each other on the grass when he laid his hand on my belly. Of course I was nervous. I had never had a guy touch me. I didn't know what to do. But then he just kissed me. It was the most intense feeling I've ever had, and I got so aroused that I bit into his lip. He said ouch and went back on his back. I apologized and saw that he was bleeding. Gosh, what had I done? I was so stupid. I said, "I'm so sorry. I've never kissed a guy before." "It's okay, don't worry. I just didn't know you like it that way." "What do you mean by that way?" "You like it rough. That's okay." "No, I don't think so." He went back on top of me and gently choked me. "Do you like this?" I couldn't speak, so I just nodded. I loved the way he played with me. It was the first time I felt truly attracted to a guy. Afterward, we became a couple and spent all our time together. I loved sitting next to him in the library so I could watch him read books. He always looked so handsome. But one day, he was just gone. He didn't respond to my text, and his dorm mate said he had disappeared without saying anything. Of course, I was worried. Maybe something had happened to him, so I called up all the hospitals, but he wasn't there. Maybe he had left because of me. Maybe he didn't love me anymore. I suddenly remembered my mom. For years, I had avoided thinking about her, but now it all came back, especially the guilt that I had not taken care of her. I stayed inside my bed for days, crying my heart out until I decided I had to find her. Maybe she was still alive, so I went to the police and asked them to find out where they had brought my mom 10 years ago. It took them 2 weeks to figure out, but the news wasn't good. My mom had died shortly after we were separated. I can't describe how hard the news hit me. I was absolutely devastated. I knew I was close to giving up and asked myself, is my life worth living? The answer was, no, it's not. But I knew it could become worth living if I got a nice job, found a husband, and had kids someday. Yes, that would be a life worth living. And that's what I'm working towards right now.
One morning, when I went to check my Facebook feed, I realized all my male friends were missing from my friends list, including my cousins, my uncles, and even my dad. I'd given my boyfriend Frank my Facebook login so he could upload some photos for me, but I didn't think he would mess with my account. When I asked him if he knew about it, he said, "Oh, you notice they are gone? So you are paying attention to other men. I knew it." What the hell? Frank had deleted all my male friends. Looking back, I should have left him then, but I figured it was just a stupid joke. However, his behavior only got worse. I was working at a marketing agency and I would take breaks with my coworkers to vape outside. We'd talk about our various projects and make important decisions during those breaks. Well, one day I got home from work and Frank confronted me saying, "I saw you hanging out with other guys at work today." Wow. He had stalked me in my workplace, watching me when he should have been doing his own job. Things were getting creepy. I told him he didn't need to be jealous because I wasn't interested in any of my colleagues like that, but he got really angry and punched the wall. I was afraid he would hit me next, so I told him I wouldn't do it anymore. Big mistake. After that, he wanted more and more control over me. Like, he wouldn't let me wear certain clothes like shorts or tight shirts. And then he stopped me from talking to any of my male friends, including Steve, who is gay. Every day I got back from work, he would ask to go through my phone. At first, I wouldn't let him. I mean, everyone deserves some privacy, right? And there were text conversations with my friends where we talked about things I didn't want Frank to know about. But if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd scream at me for hours and start trashing our apartment. It was so emotionally draining. Eventually, I gave in and let him check my phone, but I started deleting my text conversations before I came home so he couldn't see anything. It was horrible. I guess if he could, he would have locked me in the house and not let me go anywhere without him. It took a while, but at last, I realized things couldn't go on like that, and I broke up with him. For the first few weeks, he stalked me, and one day he even climbed up my parents' house to look through our bathroom to watch me take a shower. After that, I got a restraining order from him, which means he isn't allowed to get near me or contact me in any way, or he will go to jail. However, that was 2 years ago, and Frank still sends me messages from anonymous phones. I don't want to change my number because it would feel like I'm letting him win. But whenever I see a text from him, it stresses me out. His last one was really weird. "I got another girl pregnant and it's all your fault." See how crazy he is? How could that be my fault? I wish he would just leave me alone. I don't understand why he's trying to make my life miserable. But luckily, I'm dating Nick now, and our relationship is much healthier. He respects my boundaries, and we trust each other. I feel secure with him. Sure, Nick can be a bit possessive sometimes, but so can I. There's nothing wrong about being a little possessive. It's only natural. But when you try to control someone's whole life, you have some issues, and maybe you should get help. I've done some research, and it's frightening how many guys actually killed their girlfriends because they were jealous of them just talking to another man. It's insane. So, although I'm not a professional therapist, my advice would be to stay away from anyone who tries to completely control your life. Those people are evil and only care about what they can get out of you. They don't care about your happiness at all. Please be careful.